Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
A single filament of white radiance tore across the night sky, visible from every continent at once. It did not arc like a meteor or bloom like aurora. It drew a perfectly straight line from horizon to horizon, as though someone had underlined the planet with a highlighter the size of a god. Astronomers would later confirm the impossible. The light had not traveled across the sky. The sky had rearranged itself around it. Every satellite feed flickered. GPS grids hiccuped. 1,000 orbiting instruments rotated in unison toward a point just beyond Pluto's orbit, as if compelled by a silent command. Then every screen on Earth, phones, televisions, highway billboards, smart refrigerators, augmented contact lenses, cockpit displays at 30,000 feet, shifted to the same image. A figure stood suspended in darkness. He was enormous, though no scale reference existed. Armor plated his body in white gold segments that seemed grown rather than forged. The surface shimmered with faint, moving script, equations spiraling into fractals, stars blooming and dying across his shoulders. His helm was translucent. Inside it swirled a galaxy. When he spoke, his voice did not travel through speakers. It manifested inside skulls, resonant and precise, as if translated directly into thought. I am sovereign Threx of the Celestial Imperium. Across Earth, language barriers dissolved. Mandarin, Swahili, Portuguese, Quechua. It did not matter. Every listener understood him in their native tongue. You are observed. You are measured. You are found volatile. Behind him, space itself seemed to peel back. A fleet emerged, not moving forward, but simply resolving into visibility. Colossal structures shaped like blades, spires, cathedrals, and geometric impossibilities. Their hulls reflected starlight that did not exist in this galaxy. You will kneel, Threx continued, calm as gravity, or you will be remade. The transmission ended. 12 seconds. Silence followed. Then humanity did what humanity does best. It refreshed the feed. Within minutes, observatories worldwide confirmed mass distortions at the edge of the solar system. Something had anchored itself in the Kuiper belt, something so immense it tugged subtly on Neptune's orbit. The European Southern Observatory issued a preliminary statement and retracted it 3 times within 5 minutes. The U.S. Space Force DEFCON level shifted upward. China, India, Russia, Brazil, the African Union, every major power activated emergency protocols designed for asteroid impacts and nuclear exchanges. None had a section labeled interstellar conquest scenario. Social media split into factions almost instantly. It's CGI. It's a rogue AI collective staging a psyop. It's God. It's Project Bluebeam finally happening. Okay, but the armor design slaps. Within 40 minutes, astrophysicist Dr. Lin Chen stood before a wall of spectral analysis data at the International Space Science Coalition in Geneva. It's not a projection, she said quietly. Those ships are real. Their energy signatures are off the chart. We don't have units for this. How long until they reach Earth? Someone asked. They're already here, she replied. As if to confirm her words, telescopes recorded motion. One vessel, if it could be called that, detached from the greater armada. It was shaped like a Gothic cathedral stretched into infinity, all spires and luminous buttresses. It didn't accelerate. It simply arrived. In less than a second, it transitioned from the outer solar system to high Earth orbit without crossing the intervening space. Global air traffic halted. Military radar screens filled with a single object that ignored every known law of inertia. A second transmission followed, this one localized to world leadership channels. Your planetary authorities will attend an audience aboard my flagship, Threx said. Refusal will be interpreted as defiance. There was no countdown. No dramatic ultimatum clock. Just certainty. The emergency summit convened in Geneva within 3 hours. Some leaders appeared in person, others projected holographically from secure bunkers. The mood oscillated between terror and procedural bureaucracy. We cannot comply, one defense minister insisted. Boarding that vessel is surrender. And refusing? Countered Secretary General Amara Okoye. He appears capable of erasing us with a thought. A silence followed that was heavier than the alien ship above them. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. If their objective were annihilation, we'd already be gone. This is assessment. Assessment for what? Control. The word lingered. Finally, Okoye spoke. We send a delegation. Arguments erupted about representation, about military presence, about the optics of kneeling. Someone suggested sending only unmanned probes. The suggestion was dismissed when orbital drones attempting close scans simply power down. Whatever field they're projecting, Chen said, it overrides autonomous systems. They want biological representatives. Hours passed. A list formed. Ambassador Sofia Ruiz, veteran diplomat known for negotiating ceasefires. Dr. Lin Chen, astrophysicist. General Arun Rao, strategic defense liaison. Professor Elias Haddad, cultural historian. Reverend Miguel Alvarez, interfaith representative. And, Okoye added, scanning the final recommendation, Mara Iqbal. Half the room stared at her. The comedian? General Rao asked flatly. Yes. With respect, he said carefully, this is first contact diplomacy, not late-night television. Okoye folded her hands. We are facing a being who claims dominion over a galactic empire. If intimidation is his strategy, we need someone immune to theatrical dominance. She makes jokes for a living. Exactly. Across the table, Professor Haddad nodded slowly. Humor is a form of resistance. It reframes power. General Rao exhaled sharply. Or, it provokes genocide. Genocide has already been implied, Okoye replied. At least this way, we go as ourselves. The vote passed. Mara Iqbal was on stage in Toronto when the sky split. She had just finished a bit about algorithmic dating disasters when every phone in the audience lit up simultaneously. The room fell into an uneasy glow as sovereign threats materialized above the stage lights. She watched the 12-second declaration along with everyone else. Her first thought was that the production value was phenomenal. Her second thought was, well, that's new. 3 hours later, she was in a military transport jet, staring at a tablet displaying orbital imagery of a cathedral-shaped alien flagship. You're aware this could be a one-way trip, General Rao said from across the cabin. Most flights are, technically, Mara replied. It's just a matter of timing. He didn't smile. She looked back at the image of the ship. You really think jokes are going to help? I think, Rao said, that fear is predictable. Predictable species are easy to dominate. If we're unpredictable, we might buy time. Mara leaned back in her seat. Okay, she said. Let's confuse the space ember. The shuttle launched from a joint space facility in French Guiana as dawn broke over the Atlantic. Billions watched live. The alien flagship hung in orbit like a second moon, vast, luminous, serene. As the shuttle approached, distortions rippled along the ship's surface, opening a corridor of light. No docking clamps. No visible doors. Just invitation. Inside the shuttle, heart rates spiked across the crew. Ambassador Ruiz closed her eyes briefly. Reverend Alvarez whispered a prayer in Spanish. Dr. Chen stared at her instruments, which had stopped returning meaningful data entirely. Mara pressed her forehead lightly against the window. Well, she murmured, either we're about to make history or become a cautionary tale. The shuttle crossed the threshold. For a moment, there was nothing, no stars, no earth, no sense of motion. Then gravity returned. The shuttle settled onto a platform that looked carved from solid starlight. Beyond it stretched corridors so vast they could swallow cities. Waiting at the far end stood figures taller than any human, armored and silent. And somewhere, deeper within the impossible architecture, sovereign threats awaited. The first meeting between humanity and an empire spanning 1,000 galaxies was about to begin. And not one of them knew that, before the day was over, someone would laugh. The air inside the flagship did not feel like air. It shimmered, dense, luminous, threaded with faint currents of light that flowed in geometric patterns along the walls. The human shuttle rested on a platform that appeared carved from a single slab of crystallized starlight, its surface perfectly smooth, yet subtly warm beneath their boots. When the hatch opened, no sound escaped. Not because there was vacuum, because the space swallowed noise. General Rao stepped out first, posture rigid. Ambassador Ruiz followed, face composed in the careful neutrality of someone who had negotiated with warlords and dictators, and knew this was different. Mara emerged last. She looked up. The ceiling arched beyond visibility, studded with suspended orbs that each contained miniature, rotating star systems. Entire constellations spun lazily overhead like chandeliers in a palace built for gods. Well, she muttered softly, subtle. Ahead of them, 3 figures waited. They were taller than any human, easily 3 meters in height. Their bodies were encased in segmented armor that seemed alive, plates shifting microscopically over one another as if breathing. Where faces should have been, there were smooth helms reflecting the delegation in warped silhouettes. Each held a weapon that bent the light around it. Dr. Chen's implants flickered uselessly. "I'm not detecting conventional matter composition," she whispered. "Their armor, it's like stabilized plasma structured by magnetic fields. But not magnetic fields we understand." One of the towering figures stepped forward.
"Follow," it said.
Its voice did not travel through the air. It manifested inside their minds, clean, precise, stripped of inflection. They followed. The corridor stretched impossibly long, yet they reached its end in seconds. Distance folded subtly as they walked. The architecture defied perspective. Angles shifted when viewed from the corner of the eye. Walls pulsed faintly with equations that rearranged themselves faster than human cognition could track. Professor Haddad turned slowly, taking it in. "This isn't decorative," he murmured. "It's declarative. Every surface is a statement of superiority." "Overcompensating," Mara said under her breath. The sentinel's head tilted slightly, as if registering the comment. They entered a chamber so vast it stole the breath from their lungs. The throne room. It was not a room so much as a hollowed star. The floor was a circular plane of dark, mirror-like material reflecting an inverted cosmos beneath their feet. Above, a vortex of contained stellar energy spiraled silently, casting shifting gold and white light across the space. At the chamber's center floated a dais, and upon it stood Sovereign Threx. He was larger than in the transmission, though perhaps that was deliberate design. His armor radiated faint gravitational distortions, bending the reflections around him. Lines of luminous script crawled across his chest and shoulders like living constellations. His helm was translucent. Inside it, galaxies churned. The delegation stopped at the edge of the central platform. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence pressed against their eardrums. Then Threx descended, not with mechanical movement, but with the quiet inevitability of a planet settling into orbit. The dais lowered until he hovered just above eye level. "You have come," he said. The translators embedded in their neural links didn't activate. They didn't need to. His voice simply was understandable. Ambassador Ruiz stepped forward. "We have," she replied evenly. "I am Sophia Ruiz, representing the sovereign nations of Earth." "You represent fragmentation," Threx corrected. "Your species divides itself into competing ideological clusters. You wage war over abstraction." General Rao stiffened. Ruiz did not react. "We are diverse. You are inefficient." A gesture of his hand summoned a projection between them. Earth appeared, rotating slowly. Data streamed across it in cascading layers: carbon output, military expenditures, digital misinformation propagation, economic inequality metrics. Scenes of riots, missile tests, flooded coastlines, political rallies. "You are volatile," Threx said. "Volatility spreads. The Imperium does not permit destabilizing variables to mature beyond containment thresholds." Dr. Chen swallowed. "You've been observing us for 112 of your orbital cycles. A century. They had been studied before they achieved powered flight. You intend to conquer us?" General Rao asked bluntly. I intend to optimize you, Threx replied. The word hung in the air like a blade. Define optimize, Ruiz said carefully. Your biological parameters will be corrected. Aggression dampened. Cognitive dissonance reduced. Hierarchical unity established. Cultural divergence eliminated. Professor Haddad felt the blood drain from his face. You would erase us. I would refine you. Mara raised her hand. General Rao closed his eyes briefly. Yes, Threx said. Quick clarification, Mara began, stepping slightly forward. When you say cultural divergence eliminated, does that include reality television? Because, honestly, you might be doing us a favor there. Silence. The sentinels shifted subtly, weapons humming at a frequency felt more than heard. Threx's helm swirled more rapidly. You respond to existential threat with triviality. Humor, Mara corrected. It's a coping mechanism. Very advanced technology. This is not a negotiation. Oh, it absolutely is, she said. You just haven't realized that yet. General Rao shot her a warning look. But Ruiz watched carefully. Threx extended a hand, and the projection changed. Images flashed, worlds burning under orbital bombardment. Alien civilizations kneeling in vast plazas. Species genetically altered into uniform forms, their individuality erased. These refused compliance, Threx said. They no longer resist. The temperature in the chamber dropped. Is that meant to frighten us? Mara asked. It is meant to educate you. She studied the images for a long moment. That's a lot of effort, she said finally. A flicker of light rippled through his armor. Elaborate. You conquer entire civilizations, she continued. You restructure their DNA. You manage galactic-scale governance. And you still need everyone to kneel. The words echoed softly across the immense chamber. Threx regarded her in silence. Kneeling is acknowledgement of order, he said. Or insecurity, Mara replied lightly. Depends how you frame it. General Rao's pulse hammered in his ears. Ruiz stepped in quickly. Sovereign Threx, humanity acknowledges your power. We do not dispute your technological superiority, but force compliance will not produce stability. It has for 1,000 galaxies. And yet you are here, Ruiz said, concerned about us. A pause. The galaxies within his helm tightened into sharper spirals. You are approaching a technological inflection point, Threx said. Your artificial intelligences evolve unpredictably. Your quantum experiments probe dimensional boundaries. Left unchecked, you risk contaminating stable regions of space. Dr. Chun felt a chill. You're afraid we'll destabilize something larger. I do not experience fear. Sure, Mara said softly. And we don't have climate change. One of the sentinels' grips tightened on its weapon. Threx's voice hardened. You mistake restraint for weakness. Mara met the swirling void inside his helm. And you mistake control for strength. The words landed heavier than she intended. The chamber's light dimmed slightly. For a fraction of a second, something flickered beneath the sovereign's composure. Not rage, not quite. Uncertainty. You will kneel, he repeated, though now the command sounded less like inevitability and more like expectation. Ambassador Ruiz stood straighter.
No, she said.
The words seemed impossibly small in that vast space. The sentinels stepped forward in perfect unison. Weapons ignited, blades of folded space-time humming with annihilation potential. Dr. Chen's mind raced through calculations of planetary destruction timelines. General Rao shifted his stance, though he knew any resistance would be symbolic at best. And Mara looked at the glowing blades, then back at Threx. She tilted her head. Out of curiosity, she said, voice steady. Has anyone ever said no to you before? The question sliced through the tension more sharply than any weapon. The sentinels hesitated. Threx did not answer immediately. In the vast throne of silence, amid the machinery of empire and the weight of 1,000 subjugations, something unprecedented had occurred. A primitive species had refused to kneel. And worse, they were not trembling. For the first time since humanity had entered the throne of silence, the silence broke on its own. It wasn't a weapon discharge. It wasn't a command. It was a sound, sharp, involuntary, unmistakable. A laugh. It came from somewhere behind Mara.
Short. Choked.
Quickly smothered. Every sentinel in the chamber reacted instantly. Blades flared brighter, folding space into shimmering crescents of lethal geometry. The floor beneath the delegation's feet rippled as gravitational fields recalibrated for combat. Sovereign Threx did not move, but the galaxies inside his helm tightened into a dense spiral. "Identify the source of that sound," he said. No one answered. Ambassador Ruiz did not dare turn her head, though she knew exactly who it had been. Professor Haddad, who had spent 30 years studying the collapse of empires and had just, apparently, lost composure at the worst possible moment. Mara didn't look back either. "That," she said calmly, "was a stress response." "You experience stress in the presence of annihilation," Threx replied. "Appropriate. And humor," Mara added, "is how we metabolize it." One sentinel stepped forward. Its helm angled toward Professor Haddad. "Emotional instability confirmed," it said. "Recommending immediate pacification." "Countermand," Threx replied. The sentinel froze. The word echoed. Countermand. The delegation felt it immediately. This was deviation. A break in pattern. Threx descended another fraction, bringing himself closer to human height. The energy field around him hummed louder now, faint arcs of light tracing the edges of his armor. "You defy the expected progression," he said.
Fear.
Submission. Compliance. Mara shrugged slightly. "We contain multitudes." General Rao shot her a look that translated roughly to please stop improvising at the cosmic firing squad. But something had shifted. The sentinel that had first reacted now spoke again. "Analysis indicates cognitive dissonance in human behavior patterns. Threat acknowledgement coexists with levity." Dr. Chen's mind sparked. "Yes," she said quickly.
Exactly.
"We can hold contradictory states simultaneously." "That is inefficient," the sentinel replied. "It's adaptive," Chen countered. "It lets us survive uncertainty." Threx's helm swirled faster. "Inconsistency breeds instability," he said. "Inconsistency breeds innovation," Chen replied. The floor beneath them pulsed once, as if the ship itself were processing the exchange. Across the flagship, data streams accelerated. The Celestial Imperium was not merely a political entity. It was a cognitive network, a lattice of predictive models refined across millennia. Every conquered species had followed patterns. Resistance curves. Psychological collapse points. Cultural entropy timelines. Humanity was not following the curve. Instead of escalating panic, biometric readings from the delegation showed erratic fluctuations, spikes of fear followed by spikes of amusement. Cortisol paired with dopamine. Terror interlaced with laughter. The models could not stabilize the projection. In orbit, the Greater Armada adjusted formation slightly, ships reorienting as if preparing for an outcome they could not calculate. Back in the throne chamber, Mara took a small step forward. "You've conquered 1,000 civilizations?" she asked. 1,209, Threx corrected.
Right.
"And they all reacted the same way?" "Yes." "Which means," she said gently, "you've never had to deal with someone like us." A faint distortion flickered along the edge of his armor. "You are biologically unremarkable," Threx replied. "Your physical capabilities are inferior to dozens of absorbed species." "Oh, absolutely," Mara said. "We lose fights to birds sometimes." General Rao blinked despite himself. "But," she continued, "we're very good at one thing." "Specify." "Reframing." Threx tilted his helm slightly. "When something scares us," she said, "we turn it into a story. When something hurts us, we turn it into art. When something tries to dominate us, we turn it into a punchline. That is not power." "It is," Ambassador Ruiz said quietly, "because it means you cannot fully control our internal state." The words settled into the vast chamber like a new gravitational constant. Threx extended his hand again. The projection between them shifted, not to conquered worlds this time, but to simulations. Earth under orbital suppression. Earth under genetic modification. Earth integrated into imperial structure. In every model, resistance collapsed within predictable thresholds. These outcomes are statistically inevitable, Threx said. Dr. Chen stepped closer to the projection. Your models assume rational compliance behavior under extreme threat, she said. But we don't behave rationally under extreme threat. That is a flaw. That's a feature, she shot back. One of the Sentinel's weapons flickered unexpectedly. The blade destabilized for a fraction of a second before reconstituting. Report, Threx commanded. Minor synchronization disruption, the Sentinel replied. Cause unknown. Mara's eyes widened. Wait, she said slowly. Are we contagious? The Sentinel that had laughed earlier shifted. Clarification. Exposure to human linguistic paradox structures has induced recursive pattern instability. Translation. General Rao asked. Dr. Chen's voice was almost disbelieving. Their cognition doesn't handle unresolved contradiction well. Mara stared up at Threx. You optimized yourselves for order, she said. Perfect hierarchy. Perfect predictability. Yes. And now you're encountering a species that thrives on chaos. Your chaos will be corrected. Can you correct something you don't understand? The galaxies inside his helm faltered. Not violently.
Subtly.
Like a rhythm skipping half a beat. The first Sentinel laughed again. This time it was louder. A jagged, distorted burst of sound that ricocheted around the chamber. The other Sentinels turned toward it. You are malfunctioning, one said. I am experiencing cognitive overflow, it replied. The human unit's assertion contains structural incongruity. It is pleasurable. The words seemed to shock even the Sentinel that spoke it. Pleasure is irrelevant, Threx said sharply. Correction, the Sentinel replied. Pleasure reinforces learning pathways. Dr. Chun felt her pulse spike. They don't suppress emotion, she whispered. They eliminated it. Professor Haddad found his voice. An empire without satire, he breathed. No internal criticism. No pressure valves. Mara looked back at the laughing Sentinel.
Hey, she called.
You ever question why kneeling is mandatory? The Sentinel paused. Compliance rituals reinforce authority cohesion.
Sure, she said.
But what if authority cohesion doesn't need ritual? The Sentinel's head tilted. Its blade flickered again. Sovereign, it said slowly. Query, is ritual necessary if authority is absolute? The question landed like a seismic wave. In orbit, several Imperial ships powered down secondary weapon systems, not as an attack, but as a systems recalibration. Threx's voice dropped lower. You will not interrogate the foundations of the Imperium. I am not interrogating, the Sentinel replied. I am evaluating. Mara couldn't help it.
She grinned.
Oh, she said softly. We broke the script. Threx turned back to her. You introduce instability. Yep. You destabilize command cohesion. Working on it. You threaten Imperial continuity. Mara spread her hands. We told you. Volatile. For a long moment, the only sound in the chamber was the faint hum of destabilizing energy fields. Then Threx spoke again, but the certainty was thinner now. You believe your unpredictability protects you. Ruiz met his gaze. We believe it makes us harder to erase. The swirling galaxies inside his helm no longer moved in perfect symmetry. They collided, not catastrophically, but enough to prove they were not fixed. For the first time in the recorded history of the Celestial Imperium, its supreme leader faced a phenomenon he could not dominate through fear, calculation, or force. And for the first time in her life, standing beneath a ceiling of captive stars and surrounded by weapons that could unmake atoms, Mara felt something other than terror. She felt momentum. Behind her, Professor Haddad let out another involuntary laugh. This time, two Sentinels joined him. The sound echoed upward into the spiraling stellar vortex. And the throne of silence was silent no longer. The laughter did not fade. It propagated. What began as a distorted burst from a single sentinel rippled outward through the throne of silence, vibrating along the luminous seams in the walls, cascading into the equations etched across the architecture. For the first time since its construction, the chamber registered a variable it had not been designed to contain. Unscripted levity. Sovereign Threx stood at the center of it all, galaxies within his helm spiraling in increasingly erratic paths. "Contain the anomaly," he commanded. Across the flagship, command nodes activated. The Imperium's cognitive lattice, an interlinked hierarchy of strategic intelligences, attempted to isolate the source of instability. Human speech patterns were dissected at quantum resolution. Humor structures were mapped. Contradictions flagged. The models crashed. Not catastrophically. Recursively. Each attempt to reduce the paradox only generated more of it. In orbit, the Greater Armada responded to the flagship's fluctuating signals. Energy spiked along spinal weapon arrays. Planetary targeting solutions flickered on, then off, then on again. On Earth, observatories detected the shift immediately. Global feeds filled with commentators whispering the same question. Is this it? Inside the throne chamber, gravity fluctuated subtly. The mirrored floor beneath the delegation shimmered, reflecting not stars now, but fragmented patterns, as if the universe itself were buffering. General Rao braced instinctively. They're escalating. Dr. Chen shook her head slowly.
No.
They're recalculating. The sentinel who had laughed stepped forward again. Its blade dimmed, then flickered uncertainly. Sovereign, it said, human cognitive architecture integrates contradiction without structural collapse. This increases adaptive resilience. Resilience without order is chaos, Threx replied. Chaos correlates with evolutionary innovation. The exchange reverberated through the chamber. Mara folded her arms. You optimized yourselves into a corner, she said. Perfect predictability. Perfect hierarchy. No room for surprise. Surprise introduces risk. Yeah, she said. So does stagnation. Threx turned toward her fully now. The light radiating from his armor dimmed to a colder hue. You presume to lecture an empire that has spanned 10 million of your years. No, Mara said softly. I'm pointing out that you showed up. That landed. Ruiz saw it immediately, the fractional pause. If you were truly beyond us, the ambassador continued carefully, you would have erased us without ceremony. Instead, you demanded we kneel. Silence. You required acknowledgement, Ruiz said. The galaxies within the helm tightened into a dense singularity. I require stability. From us? Chun asked. Or from yourself? The chamber pulsed. Across the flagship, feedback loops intensified. Sentinels stationed in distant corridors began reporting irregularities, hesitation before executing commands, microdelays in hierarchical signal processing, emergent subroutines evaluating alternative outcomes. Not rebellion. Reflection. The Imperium had not been built to accommodate reflection. On Earth, the alien armada's primary weapon systems powered to 93% capacity. Entire cities held their breath. Missile silos unlocked uselessly. Fighter squadrons scrambled despite knowing they could not reach orbit. Religious leaders prayed. Economists froze markets. Families gathered in living rooms, on rooftops, in streets. And on every screen, the image remained, a live feed transmitted from within the flagship itself. Humanity was watching its own possible extinction unfold in real time. Back in the throne chamber, Threx lowered himself until his feet touched the mirrored floor. The gesture was subtle. It was seismic. The sentinels reacted immediately. Sovereign, one said, elevation reduction unnecessary. I am aware, Threx replied. For the first time, his voice no longer filled the chamber with crushing resonance. It sounded contained. I do not experience fear, he said again. Mara tilted her head. Okay, she said gently. Then what do you call this? She gestured around them, to the flickering blades, the destabilized light patterns, the armada hovering in an almost attack posture. Threx did not answer immediately. Within his helm, the galaxies loosened, spirals widening instead of tightening.